Alaska, the last frontier, is a land of breathtaking beauty. Towering mountains, endless forests, and rivers that carve through the wilderness. But beneath its serene surface lies a world of danger, where nature and the unknown can turn a peaceful camping trip into a nightmare. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 true stories from real people who face terror in Alaska's wilds. From predatory beasts to supernatural forces and nature's unrelenting fury, these tales will make you think twice before pitching a tent in the Alaskan wilderness. So turn off the lights, grab a blanket, and prepare to be scared. It was the summer of 2015, and I had just graduated from college. To celebrate, my friends, Jake, Sarah, and I planned a week-long float trip down the Delta River in Alaska. We'd heard about its pristine waters, abundant wildlife, and the thrill of navigating untouched wilderness. The idea of camping under the stars, far from civilization, was exhilarating. But we also knew Alaska was home to grizzly bears, some of the most dangerous creatures on Earth. Armed with bear spray and a healthy dose of caution, we thought we were prepared. We rented a raft and packed our gear, sturdy tents, warm sleeping bags, enough food for a week, and a first aid kit. The first few days were pure magic. We floated down the river, casting lines for salmon and hiking through dense forests of spruce and birch. At night, we'd set up camp on gravel bars, the river's gentle hum lulling us to sleep. The distant howl of a wolf or the rustle of leaves felt like part of the adventure. But as we neared the end of our trip, the atmosphere changed. Dark clouds rolled in, and the air grew heavy with the promise of a storm. On the second to last night, we set up camp in a small clearing near the riverbank. The ground was soft with moss, and the surrounding trees stood like silent sentinels. We built a fire, cooked a simple meal of freeze-dried chili, and crawled into our tents early, exhausted from a long day on the water. I fell asleep to the sound of the river, feeling safe in my sleeping bag. But in the dead of night, something woke me. A strange, wet sensation on my forehead, rough and warm. My eyes snapped open, and my heart stopped. Looming over me was the massive head of a grizzly bear, its nose inches from mine, its tongue licking my skin. Time froze. I could smell its musky fur, feel its hot breath on my face. Its dark eyes, glinting in the faint moonlight filtering through the tent, studied me with an unsettling intelligence. My mind screamed, "Don't move. Don't make a sound." But as the bear continued to lick, its curiosity turning into something more menacing, I knew I had to act. I remembered a tip from a survival guide. Blowing into a bear's nose can startle it. It was a desperate move, but I had no choice. Slowly, I raised my hand, my arm trembling, and blew as hard as I could into its nose. The bear jerked back, snorting loudly, and lumbered out of the tent, ripping the fabric as it went. I heard it crash through the underbrush, its heavy footsteps fading into the night. I lay there, shaking, my heart pounding so loudly I thought it might burst. Jake and Sarah, who had been sleeping beside me, were now awake, their faces pale in the dim light. "Did that really just happen?" Jake whispered, his voice barely audible. "Yeah," I managed to say. "We need to get out of here." "But it's the middle of the night," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "We can't pack up now." "We can't stay here either," I insisted. "That bear might come back." We sat in silence, too terrified to sleep, listening for any sign of the bear's return. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent our pulses racing. The hours dragged on, each minute an eternity, At one point, we heard heavy footsteps circling the campsite, and I gripped the bear spray, ready to fight for our lives. But the bear didn't return. As dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and grey, we packed up with shaking hands. We loaded the raft and pushed off, the river carrying us away from that cursed clearing. The rest of the trip was a blur of fear and exhaustion. When we reached civilization, we reported the incident to park rangers. They nodded knowingly. Bear encounters were common in Alaska, but a bear entering a tent and licking someone's face was rare. "You're lucky it didn't attack," one ranger said. "It must have been curious." Lucky indeed. But even now, years later, I can still feel the bear's tongue on my skin. Hear its heavy breathing. See its eyes staring into mine. I've been back to Alaska since, but I've never camped in that area again. Some places hold memories too terrifying to revisit. I was born in a small cabin deep in the Alaskan wilderness, far from any town or city. My parents were homesteaders, living off the land, growing vegetables, hunting for meat, and chopping wood for heat. It was a hard life, but it was also beautiful, surrounded by towering pines and rugged mountains. Yet, our home was not entirely our own. The forest around us belonged to something else, something ancient and unseen. From a young age, I heard stories about the little people who lived in the woods. According to local legend, they were small, elf-like beings who could be both benevolent and malevolent. They lived in hidden villages, appearing only when they chose to. My parents taught us to leave offerings, bits of tobacco, dried berries, small carvings, to keep them appeased. Most of the time, they left us alone, but sometimes their presence was undeniable. When I was a baby, my parents heard strange noises coming from my crib one night. Soft giggles and the patter of tiny feet. When they checked, they found small handprints on my blankets and bruises on my arms that hadn't been there before. They believed the little people had visited me, perhaps curious about the new life in their domain. They doubled the offerings after that, hoping to keep the peace. As I grew older, I had my own encounters. One evening, when I was 5, I was playing near the edge of the forest when I saw a small figure dart between the trees. It was no taller than my waist, with a shadowy form that seemed to flicker in the fading light. I froze, my heart racing, but it was gone before I could call out. I ran inside and told my parents, who exchanged a knowing look. "That's one of them," my father said. "Don't follow it, just leave it be." But the most terrifying incident happened when I was 10. During a brutal winter, the temperatures plummeted to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and we were snowed in for weeks. The cabin felt like a fortress against the cold, but something else was stirring. Our dogs, usually bold and protective, began to cower in corners, whining softly. We heard footsteps on the roof at night, even when the wind was still. One evening, my father was sitting by the fire, reading, when he suddenly clutched his chest and collapsed, gasping for air. My mother rushed to his side, but he couldn't speak. His face was turning blue. She began to pray, her voice loud and fervent, invoking the name of God and commanding whatever was afflicting him to leave. Slowly, my father's breathing returned to normal, and he sat up, shaken but alive. Later, he told us he had felt a heavy weight on his chest, as if something was sitting on him, trying to suffocate him. He couldn't move or cry out. It was only my mother's prayers that broke the spell. We never saw the little people directly, but we felt their presence, a constant reminder that we were guests in their world. We moved to town when I was a teenager, seeking a less isolated life. But those experiences stayed with me, shaping my understanding of the world. In Alaska, there are forces beyond science, beyond logic. And in the wilderness, you're never truly alone. In 2010, 4 experienced hunters set out for a week-long trip in the Alaskan backcountry near the Brooks Range. They were seasoned outdoorsmen, equipped with maps, compasses, satellite phones, and all the gear needed for a successful hunt. Their plan was to track moose and caribou in one of the most remote regions of Alaska. They informed their families of their itinerary and promised daily check-ins via satellite phone. For the first few days, everything went smoothly. They reported successful hunts, sharing stories of the vast landscapes and the thrill of the chase. But on the 4th day, their check-in didn't come. Their families waited, hoping it was a technical glitch. But when another day passed without contact, they alerted the authorities. A massive search and rescue operation was launched. Helicopters buzzed over the rugged terrain, and ground teams combed the forests and valleys. But Alaska's wilderness is vast, and the hunters had vanished without a trace. Weeks turned into months, then years, and hope faded. Their families held vigils, clinging to the slim chance of a miracle. In 2020, a group of hikers made a grim discovery in a remote valley. Scattered bones, partially clothed and gnawed by animals, lay in a dry streambed. Forensic analysis confirmed they were the remains of the 4 missing hunters. Investigators pieced together the tragedy. The hunters had set up camp in what seemed like a safe, dry riverbed, unaware of the danger lurking in Alaska's unpredictable weather. Meteorological records showed that on the day they went missing, a sudden storm had dumped several inches of rain in a matter of hours. The dry streambed transformed into a raging torrent, sweeping the hunters away before they could escape. Their bodies were carried miles from their camp, left to the mercy of the elements and wildlife. The discovery brought closure to the families, but also renewed pain as they learned the gruesome fate of their loved ones. Experts noted that flash floods are a growing risk in Alaska, especially as climate change brings more extreme weather. What seems like a safe camping spot can become a death trap in an instant. This tragedy is now a cautionary tale in outdoor safety courses, teaching campers to check weather forecasts, avoid low-lying areas, and respect the power of nature. The hunter's story lingers as a haunting reminder that even the most prepared can fall victim to Alaska's wild. These 3 stories are a glimpse into the dangers that lurk in Alaska's wilderness. From a grizzly bear invading a tent to supernatural entities haunting a cabin and nature's sudden wrath claiming lives, the risks are real and ever-present. For those drawn to adventure, the thrill of the unknown is part of the allure. But these tales remind us to respect the land, stay prepared, and remain vigilant. In Alaska, the line between beauty and terror is razor thin, and the shadows hold secrets that can change you forever. Stay safe out there, and maybe think twice before camping in the last frontier.